It's year 4 for John Gruden. And he got a 10-year contract. He makes $100 million. It's time. And a lot of times with a coach who has struggled for a couple years, you go, well, he inherited a bad team, which Gruden did, or at least a team in some turmoil. But the main thing we always say is they don't have a quarterback. And they usually have to find a quarterback. And that can be difficult. We know. It's just hard. It's not an easy process to find a guy. And if you are just competitive, you're not winning 2 or 3 games, it's hard to get in the top 5 in the draft to land a guy. And then once you do land a guy, we all thought, not we all, but, when the Dolphins got Tua, you're like, we found their quarterback. And then we went, well, maybe they didn't find their quarterback, right? Justin Herbert is far superior. But that's not John Gruden's problem. He has Derek Carr, who played one of his better games in years, but really he's been a good quarterback the last couple years. If the Raiders would have made him available this offseason, he would have got a first-round pick back for him. Like, that's the level of quarterback which he has on his team. Now, he hires a new defensive coordinator in Gus Bradley. It looked like they were a little bit better on defense. Now, they're playing a team who had lost a bunch of running backs, but I'm not trying to diminish the win. Derek Carr, against a defense that is pretty good, threw for 435 yards. Derek Carr, is probably right on the cusp of being a top 10-ish quarterback. He's somewhere probably roving between 8 to 12. Well, you can win with that guy. The throws he made right before overtime tonight were 2 of the best plays he's made really since his, the season which he almost won the MVP. That was big-time quarterback stuff. I'm sorry, John Gruden, it's now. When you have that level of quarterback play, you put your stamp on this team. And listen, we could nitpick. Cleveland Farrell, who they drafted in the top 5, was inactive. It shouldn't ultimately matter. You have, drafted and signed every guy on this team is the guy you want. And you have the guy pulling the trigger. And clearly you have a lot of talent on the outside. Darren Waller, elite tight end. Henry Ruggs, one of the fastest guys in the league. Brian Edwards kind of came out of nowhere. That guy they drafted in the 3rd round last year. Hunter Renfro's one of the better slot receivers in the league. Josh Jacobs is a baller. Kenyon Drake is their backup running back. Their offense is loaded. All their defense has to do is just kind of be a bend but don't break. They're never going to be a top 5 defense. But can they just not be like a bottom 2 defense? Because if they can just play okay defense, they should compete to go to the playoffs. Because they have a playoff level quarterback. And if you have a playoff level quarterback in the NFL, you should be competitive. And then on the flip side, tonight was pretty embarrassing by a defensive coordinator who I think is really good in Wink Martindale. Time and time again, if you were watching the Peyton Manning, Eli Manning broadcast, and we'll get into that in a second, you might want to mix up some stuff. It's like, this is what we do. Well, if your go-to defensive play call is zero coverage, meaning you're in man coverage and you're blitzing everybody, I get doing that every once in a while. Or in big spots. But if you've done it in 7 big spots and in a game like tonight that is just kind of batshit crazy, you've done it on every big spot. They know it's coming. And Peyton and Eli were like, check to the play that you know is going to work against this coverage. And he did it over and over and over again. Part of playing chess is mixing up your moves. If you know every single time what I'm going to do in football as a play caller, offensively or defensively, it's a big disadvantage. You should have a couple curveballs in there. And I thought tonight, for a guy who has a long resume of being an excellent defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, tonight was not good. Tonight was borderline pretty embarrassing, actually, especially down the stretch of that last drive and then in overtime. You can't run the same play call over and over. And there were a couple shots of John Harbaugh talking to him, kind of being like, what are we doing, bro? Come on, man. Let's mix it up here. And I think you saw tonight, and I love Lamar Jackson from an entertainment standpoint. He is a very fun player to watch, run around. Who is not entertained by that? At points, you watch him and you go, this is like a dude in high school that is going, if you live in a small town, I grew up in Davis, California, a smaller town. So if a dude that either went to my high school or a team that we played, like in Sacramento or the Vacaville area, it's kind of like between the Bay Area and Sacramento, was going Division I, we all talked about him, right? This guy's going to USC. This guy's going to Oregon. And usually that guy, when you got on the field with him, Whether you played against him or whether it was when you were younger and you just watched him from the stands, he was the best player by a mile. And that's how Lamar looks running around in the NFL. It's insane. It's like, that's what a dude that's like going to Alabama or LSU or Texas looks like their high school film. No one can touch him. Here's the problem. He's kind of reckless with his body. And he's in the middle right now of negotiating a contract because he's his own agent, which is smart. I wouldn't want to pay an agent, a couple percent when really they're not doing anything. And I think the Ravens want to build this franchise around him. I mean, really, they already have. But it's different when you're paying a guy who's a 32nd pick, so he doesn't make that much money. When you're about to invest $130, $140, $150 million guaranteed, that's a big deal. And he's clearly proven as a human being, his character, how impressive he is off the field. I have no problem with that. My question is on the field. Passing-wise, you saw him, like he can make the throws when the time is there. Their wide receivers, their first-round wide receiver's injured right now. So I'm not really judging him. He threw for 235 yards. Derek threw for 430. But Derek's a much better passer, just a pure passer than Lamar. But Lamar's passing is good enough. My issue is more, he looks to run too often, and then when he does, he's diving into piles. He's diving over guys. When he fumbled tonight, he landed on his head. If I'm the owner, if I'm the GM, if I'm the coach, every time he lands on his head, my heart sinks. And we haven't even paid him yet. So that is something that I just wonder internally, the Ravens talk a lot about. Do we really feel comfortable investing in a guy that, let's face it, when you play like that, because of the nature and the violence of the sport and the collisions, like, can this guy sustain for another 5-8 years playing like that? I don't know. Now, and I don't blame him for playing like that because his greatest strength is when he takes off and he turns into a video game character. He makes NFL players look like JV high school kids. He jukes them out. He runs right around them. It's really not fair. So I don't blame him ever for running. It's one of the most dangerous abilities in the entire NFL for any individual player. Lamar in the open field. It is advantage Lamar, advantage the Ravens. But often he takes off, especially when he scrambles out of the pocket when it's a clear pass play. He just ends up in some piles, diving that you just go, whoa, Lamar. Because you fear that he's going to get injured. But what an incredible game. Bad game plan, or not bad game plan, bad adjustments or lack thereof by Wink Martindale and the Baltimore defense. And really impressive by Derek Carr, a guy, let's face it, he takes a lot of shit. And some of it's earned, but he's a lot more talented than I think the casual football fan, at least the way they talk about him, and a way just that his game is perceived out there in the NFL landscape. I'm not talking about people inside the game. I'm just talking about fans and people that watch the game. I think most people think he's pretty average. Let's face it, he's pretty underrated. He's pretty good. His problem is his organization has often let him down, and definitely his defense has let him down.